dates on the resume. Here's one of those topics that if you asked 100 people, 100 people would give you different answers as to what the best practice is. Because a lot of the times people don't tap into what the actual purpose of showing dates on the resume is. So when it comes to thinking about dates on the resume, there's a couple of things that you need to think about. The first is whether to showcase specific dates. And this varies depending on how long you've been on the workforce. It also depends on whether you need to hide certain tenure attributes about your career. So you can imagine if you've spent the last 3 years jumping between jobs, 6 months here, 7 months here, 8 months at the next place, you'll have to decide for yourself whether you want to showcase the actual months that you've been at those jobs. Does that shine you in a better light than, say, only including the years? Because there's a psychology around only showing the years too, which is, do you introduce ambiguity or questions from a hiring manager? So you want to think about what's best for you in that situation, and then can you explain the different questions that are inevitably going to come up regardless of which solution you choose, whether to show months, whether to show only years. Now, the second question when it comes to dates is, how far back do you need to go on the resume? And this also ties in how long your resume should be, which really it's a personal question at the end of the day, but you really don't want to go too far back such that you introduce biases like ageism and things like that. So we have a best practice at Employment Boost that around how far back you want to go. But that also has to depend on your career. And then how far back you go also determines whether you include the months and the years only on the resume. So when it comes to longer tenure, let's say you've been at 2, 3, maybe 4 companies and you've spent 3, 4, 5 years at each company, it's going to be less important from a hiring manager's perspective to see which months you were at those positions. If you're trying to signal something to the hiring manager, maybe you want to signal that you spent 4 months of 2020 or 4 months of 2020 tending to family members or something like that, and you really want to showcase that. That might be a good solution in terms of adding months, but there are questions around doing that, and there's a best practice as well, which is a topic for another video. So when you think about dates, the second variable, of course, how far back you go, just consider the perspective or what kind of message you're sending out to hiring managers with how far back you go. A 20-year career for one person and a 20-year career for another person don't signal the same message depending on where you've been in your career, the level of expertise you have. So you just have to be aware of how far back you want to go, and then also throw in the variable of bias when it comes to ageism. So between understanding how dates come across on a resume, understanding what you're trying to get across, you can use dates actually quite tactically about with regard to how you present yourself. And if you use them right, you can really shine yourself in a good light and avoid a lot of the questions that will typically be the pitfall of somebody going into the interview going forward. So be careful with your dates.